Thanks for joining us today, guys. Today we are joined by Ian Fraser of the Go Game and Weave, and for him to share a little bit about his story and some of the ups and downs, and just learn from some of his experiences today. So, Ian, as we get started, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and Weave?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Liam. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Weave is the product of an 18-year-old business called the Go Game that pivoted pretty hard right in the beginning of the pandemic from a live in-person corporate events company into a virtual events company. And though we still run occasional in-person events, it's been pretty exciting, pretty rapid growth for our new platform called Weave, WEVE. That's sort of like a culture builder, engagement tool to build camaraderie and connectedness among corporate teams over video conferencing through sort of like a game show, typically game show, escape room, murder mystery. We have a bunch of games that we offer. So yeah, that's me.
Very cool. How did you get involved in kind of the entrepreneurial space? What made you want to start the Go Game to begin with?
That's so fun. I actually had a dream that woke me up in the middle of the night, and I was playing a game with a crazy helmet strapped to my head that was beaming in through some kind of technology, voices telling me where to go, and I was on this ridiculous sort of wild goose chase through the streets of San Francisco, and I was communicating with somebody. I didn't know who they were. I could hear them, and I said, "I'm playing some game, and I don't know what I'm doing." And they said, "Oh, no, that's part of it. You gotta follow the clues." And I was like, "Really? Where?" And whatever. And they said, "Yeah, I just finished playing. It changed my life. It's called the Go Game." And I was like, "The Go Game, huh?" And then I woke up and I had my little notebook next to my bed, and I wrote it down and just started writing about it. And then a really good friend of mine named Finn Kelly was kind of captivated with the idea, and we bought some cell phones back in the day. They were about as big as toasters, and he was a coder, and he's like, let's make this game, but let's do it where it'll talk to you through a cell phone. So we were possessed by it, and we wanted to basically make a cool, fun game that we and our friends could play. It wasn't really initially started out with like, "Hey, we're gonna start a business." So pretty funny start. But it wasn't a dream, and it came with a name. So
Fascinating that the name of the company actually came from the dream too. I don't hear that very often, but that's pretty neat. Can you talk to us a little bit more, right? A lot of what we talk about on the podcast is, once you hit that point of profitability where you don't have to worry about covering your operational overhead, right? You don't have to worry about putting food on the table, kind of where do you allocate those funds, right? And so in your case, we've got this interesting dichotomy of, you're probably working a job. Now you've got the vision to go build the game. At some point, the vision and the drive to build the game became the thing, right? And there's probably an upswing associated with that, right? Where you're putting resources in, allocating from other places, kind of what does that look like? And then once you got to that point, kind of how did you think about it? Did you go replenish wherever you pulled money from first? Did you go invest in other things? Did you invest back in the company? Kind of what was that process like for you?
Well, we've been in business for quite a long time, so we also watched the big recession, and watched all of our grandparents lose their 401ks and stuff like that, and our business was hit. We were down by 50% or something, but we decided, I think we were even around at the pets.com crash right in the beginning, and we're in San Francisco, so we're watching these wild sort of fluctuations, and decided really that like we were a great thing to invest in, like our business. There was so much under our control, which was like how hard we worked, who we hired, and so that felt almost like the less risky than like web van stock or anything like that. So we really, our guiding principle was like, let's take a ton of our money and reinvest it in the company, and like build new products and some, and initiatives like that. So typically that's what we've done, instead of like pulling all the money out of the company for ourselves. So yeah, kind of investing in ourselves felt like safe.
So in our chat ahead of the call, you'd mentioned you had a daughter who's off at college, right? So this is probably all happening as she's a young child. How did you navigate, reinvesting all that money back into the company when you're also, raising a family?
Yeah, we well, the cool thing about having a kid is, it's hard to do a lot of really expensive things, So we I think prior to having kids, I was at least gallivanting around, traveling around a lot more. But there were definitely some jokes at mine and my business partner's expense that my wife would come by our office, and our office, which was my business partner's apartment, a spare bedroom, and we'd be doing some ridiculous project that we swore was part of building the business, and she'd go in there and shake her head, like, what are you guys doing? So I think it was a motivating factor, and I don't know, we ran pretty low overhead operations in the beginning, and so yeah, we also, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I think you're not really thinking about that, with college. We're like, we're watching coders, without any college at all, garner these huge salaries. We're like, who knows what will happen.
So as you fast forward to today, right? Obviously you've had a big shift that's 18 months ago that it has significantly changed the trajectory and the offering and things like that. But if we were to look slightly prior to that change, or maybe where you are today in terms of how you think of your investment strategy, is it still the same? Is it still, hey, pour everything into the company and make this thing grow? Or did something shift along the way where that strategy became slightly different for you?
We have, it's a balance. We've been able to like pull somebody out and put it in our 401ks, and and feel somewhat de-risked, about the future. So I'd say, like, I mean, I'm a bit of a prepper. I like having you know stable things, investments. I feel like we're pretty exposed to the the frothy tech economy through our business, and that's a nice way to diversify and expose yourself to that side of the economy. And then I'm more of a, like, let's take care of the basics, and and not be wildly speculative on the personal front. At the same time, like, I think crypto is also very interesting, and I'm exposed there as well. And so I think really have like a broad view of like my financial picture, and I think my business partner does too. Yeah, but we like seeing our company as almost like a risk, it faces risk, more so, I think, than my investments, if that makes sense.
As you go back, would you change anything?
Yeah, I think we could have swung harder for the fences, maybe. The funny story is we had this, we met with a intellectual property attorney early on after the stream, and we were hacking this game together, and we were like, what kind of, we should get some patents or something, like, for what? We met with this guy, and we were like, well, we have a game where it's like, we have one of these new phones that you read, and it's got words on it, and then the words tell you where to go. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. So we can tell you where to go in text. And he was like, huh, you might be able to protect that idea. He's like, and at the time we were living off our savings. He's like, I think it's going to be about $25,000 to get that going. And we were like, yeah, I don't know, man. That's a lot of money. And he said, what you should do is just go ahead and get a really big head start on your competition, because I don't think anybody's really doing this right now. I think it turned out to be pretty sound advice. Like, we had a really great run up in, like, sort of the first 5 to 10 years of like fast growth and really had a ton of fun building a business. But there are times where I think back and I'm like, oh man, we should have filed, we should have gotten those patents on reading a cell phone. But you know, there are some other companies that were competitors to ours that I think strategically thought about the landscape of like geolocative mobile technology in a much broader sense than we did. We were so excited to be, you know, booking events and, you know, making money, you know, hiring people. And there were some other companies, I think, that saw the bigger landscape of like what these phones would become in our lives. So I think, yeah, there's a little like going back, I feel like, man, I think there were probably some opportunities to swing for the fences more than we did. But like you said, you know, it's like you have a kid and a wife who's like, hey, really hoping we can get that new stove. Like, it's gonna happen. So you know, that I'd say that's one of the things, you know, but it also turned out, you know, to be a really fun ride. So can't really complain.
What's the most exciting thing that you're working on today that gets you jazzed?
I would say this virtual video conferencing platform is like the ability to scale this thing is really vastly different than where we were, you know, the marketplace we were in before, which was like real people going to real events. And interestingly, like our virtual platform does have like a real life person who's a host, but they're like all over the world, and you know, they can jump in and host an event, and it is like, it's a massively different sized marketplace that we're in, to, you know, to service. And that's like, honestly, like really exciting. That's one of the things, is just like the opportunity. And then like every game that, you know, we go in and watch or audit or are part of, it's kind of magical, like this kind of fun, silly connection that happens in each game. So I don't know, I'm excited. I'm like I said earlier, Liam, like it's like we got reinvented as a startup 18 months ago after having a pretty mature, long in the tooth business. So it's like, it's just been like, we've been waking up in the morning with like a whole new sort of jump out of bed vigor. It's been really exciting. I think, you know, it kind of coincided with our other business basically zeroing out and every in-person corporate event going, hey, we want our money back and we're canceling our sales kickoff in Vegas that, you know, we already signed a big contract for. So that'll get you to jump out of bed. But it's been really fun to develop this game kind of in partnership with a lot of our clients who also were like, oh my gosh, what the heck are we doing? Like, everyone's in their bedroom in their pajamas and freaking out. We're like, we've got a solution for you. You know, we joked that we felt a bit like emotional first responders, you know, in that first like quarter after the pandemic. We were like, it's going to be okay. So it was very motivating.
Do you see yourself you talked about video platform and conferencing, right? Do you see yourself as a competitor to the Zooms and Teams of the world, or is it very much, no, we're still focused on, you know, that team building and that engagement that's outside of normal communication?
We've had a lot of conversations about that. It's like, do we stay in our lane where we've carved out a really nice business for ourselves in this team building world, or it's like, do we go take on some really big players and do we go, you know, try to become a better meeting platform? And it's been pretty crazy, but we're going to be a better meeting platform, and that's our task. So we're starting, you know, subscription, you know, we're really pivoting into like a SaaS model, and not becoming just an event company, but a platform and content offering. So yeah, I think a good way to think about this is, we're on Zoom right now, but we use Google Meets a lot, and it's pretty pretty common meeting platform, and they have a little button on the bottom right of Google Meets, and it says activities. It's pretty good real estate, you know, for like the billion people that use it every day. And it's, I don't know, the icon, it's a little circle, square, and triangle. And then you click on it, and it's like about a third of the screen pops up, and it's all white and has one activity, whiteboard. And you're like, so it actually should say activity, not activities, because there's only one in there. And we're like, and our mission is like, we want to fill that thing up. If it's for Google, you know, we want it to be on our platform, because we see every day like these tools being used by groups, whether it's like, you know, fact matching, Pictionary, karaoke, like, you know, and how much like serendipity and joy that can bring to a meeting, even if it's just for like 5 minutes of trivia before your meeting. It gets people in this really cool state of flow. Anyway, I point that out because I think like it's a piece of real estate on this monopoly board that kind of feels like ready to build on. And so, as crazy as it sounds, and that I think like maybe we're going to go back and swing for the fences this time. I mean, we definitely are, but like I say maybe because like you never know if you're going to hit the ball or not. But yeah, we have ridiculously audacious plans to do that.
That's awesome. So you're definitely swinging, right? And it'll just depend on how far that ball connects out, right?
Yeah, it's a like the ball, like it feels a bit like we went from the batting cages on like, you know, on the south side of the amusement park to the north side, where like the speeds are faster and there's a lot more hitters, and you're like, people are pulling like specialized bats out of their bag, and you're like, whoa, like it's a crowded landscape here with people with tons of funding, you know, all vying for how do we make remote work more engaging, and how do we make people who are, you know, who are distributed feel emotionally connected, you know. So it's not a secret little part of the economy here, you know.
So as we tie that back to kind of investment and swinging, right? Like you had talked about earlier, where, hey, I don't want to necessarily put all my chips on this thing. And now you talk about, you know, hey, we're swinging. Is it a space where it's like, hey, I'm allocating and we're going and we're betting on this thing? Or is it, you know, hey, I've still got some in reserve because still got to, you know, hold true to the wifey and the travel now that, you know,
I would
daughters
say,
have grown up?
yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think we have our old business is still there, and it's an in-person corporate event business that was great, and our website's still there. We still have pretty good SEO, and I feel like that's kind of the plan B is like, you know, we can always, there's always money in the banana stand, you know, if you ever watched Arrested Development, you know, it's like sort of the banana stand, you know, of this, but we're kind of building this pier in front of the banana stand that certainly might get washed away by a hurricane, but we're all going to run back to the live in-person events banana stand, and hopefully start building that up again. Yeah, it's a risk, you know, but like I've been around a while. I'm 52, you know, and I've seen a lot of friends and folks who've grown companies and evaluated their opportunities, and this really does feel like an opportunity that we'd be silly to really not get in the batting cage right now. We're seeing like such good product market fit, and you know, but it is a little scary, you know, at the same time. You're like, okay, am I gonna like throw my back out swinging so hard with this, you know, little bat? So you know, like so far I feel like we're on base, you know. We're playing small ball, and that's kind of what we're telling our staff. It's like, let's just, hey, our average is good, you know. I think everyone's like, hey, are we gonna get a grand slam? Like, you know, whoever, Mark McGuire. And it's like, maybe, like, but we're moving people around the bases pretty well. So I think we're happy with that, and it's giving us some, you know, some confidence.
Nice. Any piece of advice or feedback that you would give to, you know, someone who's earlier in the journey or in the middle of the journey or just kind of coming into that profitability state, you know, given your experience?
Yeah, I would just say that like the just focus on the people that you're bringing on, to partner with, like to hire, to those key hires. That's everything. And I've experienced the sea anchor of the wrong people, and the wind that's like pushing into your sails with the right people. So I think that's really like, it's nothing new at all, but it's so important.
So on that front, what have you done or developed, or how do you think about, your hiring process to make sure that you get the person who's, blowing wind into the bellows as opposed to anchoring you down?
Yeah, we it's interesting, like in this new remote world, like we've been able to interview people so much farther and wider. And I think it used to be like, well, let's think about our personal networks and who lives within whatever 50 miles of you. It's ridiculous. So we've actually been using our platform to interview people, to get a better sense of what they're like, using like a more of a gamified video conference call. So I'd say like we've kind of embraced some of these new ways of recruiting, and not just sticking to the like, well, we'll hire, we'll hit our network up, we'll put an ad out on wherever. So it's kind of fun to be able to like check those boxes like everywhere. I want, or like these time zones. So that's been pretty cool. And we've seen the remote work very well. For us, we've like accomplished a lot, with everyone working from home. So
that's allowed you to cast a wider net, it sounds like. Is there anything as part of that process to, keep it less of a roulette wheel, so to speak, if someone who's got the right experience says the right things, right, and then comes in and doesn't perform, right?
Yeah.
Versus, right, someone who actually does what you're hoping.
Yeah, well, I have, my business partner has the unenviable and harder task. Well, I don't know if it's harder, of hiring, engineers. So he does gives tests, and he really wants to know that you've got like, you can do what you say you can do. And I'm a very old school person where I usually ask about like, what's what was the crappy job you did? Because I've like, I don't want to interview people that tell me like that they're an experienced designer or something, where they're like, they threw a good dinner party and then they're like, hey, I'm an experienced designer. It's like, I want, remember interviewing somebody, and their job was that they washed and groomed dogs, like in a place for 2 years when they were in college or something. And I was like, it's like the ability to like, especially if you're in a startup mode where you don't have huge departments with big teams, you really need people that can buckle down and do the dirty work. And it's like, hey, you're not going to come in here, you're not going to have a team to go in and do the mind-numbing work of like figuring out exactly how the Google Analytics is working, and so you want someone who can actually do that. And then I sort of find like those super analog jobs that you might have done when you were younger are a good indicator of like one's ability to do that.
That's interesting. Appreciate you sharing that. As we're wrapping up here, Ian, what's the best way for people to connect back with you?
Sure. Sorry, that's my dog whining at like the next door neighbor's dog. Yeah, probably is our website. It's weave.co, WEVE.co. And I think on Instagram, we're Weave Together. But they can email me. I'm Ian at weave.co. And my name's IAN. But yeah, our website, weave.co, there's probably 8 trillion opportunities to plop your email in there. It's a fun site. You can get a good idea of what we do.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate the time spending with us today, Ian, and I appreciate the insights. And maybe we'll be using Weave here shortly.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Liam.
All right. Take care.